Brad, it's John. How are you?
Pretty good, John. How you doing?
Doing great. Hey, today we're going to be talking about a topic that is right now at the forefront of all media and forefront of cryptocurrency world, which is Web3. And in order for us to talk about Web3, I was trying to figure out the best way to introduce this. But, for you listeners, always remember Brad and John were with Genesis Financial Group. This weekly YouTube channel is all about cryptocurrency. And we promise you, based on the rules of Bitcoin, we promise you, just like Bitcoin made their supply finite at 21 million, it's our guarantee that no video will run more than 21 minutes in honor of Bitcoin. So with that, Brad, I want to get those quote unquote disclaimers out of the way. But let's talk about Web3 today. And, it's been in the news. Here we are, start of 2022. It's all over the news talking about that. But for the basic audience, because we're here to educate people, we don't want to be talking too fast, over their heads too high. A lot of this stuff is 30,000 foot level, but we need to come down to ground zero a little bit. So in order to talk about Web3, we need to talk about Web2, but let's start with Web1. Let's go back to the 90s. Give the audiences a little bit overview of what the heck Web1 was so they can put context to what we're talking about today.
For sure, yeah, and it's really important to know the background of the web. So with Web 1, it was all about static websites. So you'd go to a website and you'd be able to read something from whether it was a publisher or whatever they were putting out on the web. It was really static. There wasn't really a lot of interactivity. And then what Web 2 did was it provided a lot of the interactivity. So that's where the Facebooks and the YouTubes and all of that came about. But in that whole process, Web 1's promise was to have everyone running their own server. You could run your own email server, your web server, but people realized that that's kind of tricky to do. And so Web 2, all these big companies started to create data centers, and they created the cloud, and the cloud made doing stuff on the internet way easier. Posting on Facebook right now is a heck of a lot easier than building a website in 1997. And so we have a lot of this technological advance that went from Web 1 to Web 2. But in that process, centralization happened. So no longer all of the web of the servers everywhere. They're all just in a handful of big tech companies. And so that centralization also came with less privacy, less security, and just overall, we became the product of these big tech companies.
So going back to Web 1, we're still talking about what, 1997, when that whole thing started with what, AOL and
Yeah.
Some of those antiquated
all the discs
names
that they would send. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember when that thing fired up and everything was static. You go to a page and you saw it and that was it, and you kind of moved on, right?
Yeah, it was pretty cool back then, but we didn't know what was ahead. Like the bandwidth, the fact that you had to dial up, you didn't know that someday we'd be streaming video through all of this. And so the early promise of Web 1 was where we're at now, but back then we didn't realize that there is going to be trillion-dollar market cap companies running the web by 2022. So we definitely lost a lot of early promises.
So Web 2 was, let's say, from 2003 until today, and it's going to be here for quite some time, right?
For sure, yeah.
It's the active ability for people to work with companies, kind of the peer-to-peer thing as well, transacting business, sending money over the internet. It's really created the whole e-commerce and allowed people to do a lot more work, either for themselves or with large corporations. So let's get into it because time is precious. So let's talk about Web3. Are there some things that people should know that Web3 is not, or what it's not going to be? Since we kind of know what Web 1 and 2 are, we've been in it for the last 25 years. What are things that it's not going to be? Let's start there if you can talk about that.
Well, Web3 is definitely not going to be the end-all be-all solution to all of the problems that Web 1 and Web 2 created. There's definitely still a lot of critiques around the centralization, although a lot of this stuff is decentralized. But there's a concept of decentralized in name only, which is Dino. And so when it's still centralized in terms of, who runs the wallets, who runs the user experiences. So there's still a lot to figure out in this whole Web3 ecosystem. So it's still somewhat centralized, but the downfalls of that centralization doesn't really even compare to the benefits that decentralization creates. So from that perspective, when we start looking at how much benefits that there will be with all of this decentralization, there's no comparison. We're in a bright new future.
So you have Web3, which is decentralized, and then it's built on the blockchain. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Multiple different blockchains. Yep.
Multiple different blockchains. So talk to me. How's that going to, for the average person, average listener like we have, how's that going to affect their life? What are they going to experience? Do we know what the experience is going to be at this point?
That's actually that's a really interesting question, because I feel like the average person might not even realize they're using Web3. There's going to come a time where they just use different apps, which are called decentralized apps, or they use some sort of finance tool, and it's going to run on some sort of blockchain and decentralized technology, but they're not really going to know that they're using it. It's only going to be, the investors that know about the decentralized tech, and then the developers on our side. But the one thing that will be central and core to all of this is, over time, more and more people will all have a wallet. And that wallet is where the decentralized technology really shines, because everyone would have crypto in this wallet, whether that's Bitcoin or Ethereum or Avalanche or something that hasn't even been created yet. But that then allows them to connect to these decentralized apps.
So here I am. I don't care where I am. Let's say I'm in Costa Rica. I'm going onto the web. It's 2023, maybe 2022, and I'm going on to whatever website that I want to use. Behind the scenes, it's Web 3.0, but my interactability with what I'm going to be doing is going to be seamless. I'm not going to. So I have to have a wallet. Explain that again. How am I going to use that on the web?
Yeah. So it should hopefully eventually be seamless. Just like back with Web 1.0, it was really hard to send email. Like, most people didn't even have an email address for years. And over time, technology just made it easier and easier. But with the wallet, it's really cool, because once you start utilizing this crypto and you go to these different websites and you can connect your wallet, it allows for a really seamless process of being able to send and receive various amounts of currencies or crypto assets like NFTs and things like that. So everyone will have one of these wallets that they can then connect to the website. And while I could definitely go technical, the core of it is, instead of using an email and password to connect to a website, you would use your wallet, which enhances security and it also enhances privacy.
That's a big piece of information for people to understand, because I'm sitting there thinking, I use, what is it, LastPass. I've been using LastPass for, I don't know, 8-9 years.
That's good.
I have one large password I put in there, and I forget it all the damn time, which is my problem.
Yeah.
But once I get it, I come back in and I feel pretty secure. But time and time again, we hear about these break-ins, constant hacking going on the internet, etc. So let's think about that though. If I have a wallet and that allows me to get in, we're not saying that Web3, that Web.3 is cryptocurrency. We're just saying Web.3 is a new internet experience, right? You don't have to have cryptocurrency to be on Web3.
Somewhat, yeah. You'd still probably transact with the crypto, and you'd probably need a little bit in there to just pay for different fees, because when something happens, there needs to be a transfer on the blockchain, and that just requires fees. Right now, some blockchains have super high fees and other ones have very, very low fees. So that's something that's trying to be figured out. But you hit on a good point of the password manager, where like you and I both use password managers, and anyone that's, forward thinking in their online usage should be using a password manager. But the average person doesn't. They use the same password on 1,000 different websites. And if any one of those websites got hacked and someone found out that password, that malicious person could then go and try that password on any other different website. So all of a sudden, all of these people that are relying on this one password to secure their entire online presence, it just takes one bad moment to really open the keys to the castle. And that's where, on the flip side, having your own wallet is, again, you still have to protect your passphrase, and there's still like a little bit of security knowledge you need, but at the very least, you're not using a password to log into that application.
So I'm thinking about, because 90%, we've talked about this in prior videos, that 90% of people still aren't aware of cryptocurrency or Bitcoin and this whole thing. That's why we're here. We're here to educate. But I'm here sitting thinking about someone watching right now saying, wait a minute, I don't have cryptocurrency. I don't have a wallet. We'll talk about wallets in another video. I'm going to go on to this. Let's just say I'm going on to yahoo.com and I'm on Web 3. And I don't know if I'm on Web 1, 2, or 3, but I'm typing in that URL, bam. Now I don't need that wallet for that purpose, but if I want to do any commerce or whatever, you're saying that's when Web 3, you're going to need the wallet in order to do transactions.
Yeah, so I'll describe a good example. So gaming is becoming a bigger and bigger thing, and especially when like the metaverse and we have AR and VR goggles and all that kind of stuff is going to become even a bigger thing.
That
right
is
now,
augmented reality versus virtual reality, AR,
yes,
VR.
Yeah. So augmented reality is where you still kind of see the world. Virtual reality is where it's a completely immersive experience. But even before that, some of the games that are out right now, if you think about, like, games in the past had in-app currency where you paid $100 or whatever and you got some like gem, or you won something, and if you found a special weapon, or you had some skin, or whatever it is in that game, prior to the crypto version of these games, that was just stuck in that game. Like, yeah, you maybe be able to sell it on eBay and have this like cumbersome process to sell it to someone else. But with Web3, anything inside of these games, and in the future apps and metaverse and whatever it is, it all exists on the blockchain. So you can sell it for real world money. You can trade it to someone else in a very secure manner. And it just allows for a much better experience when interacting with some of these applications going forward. So a lot of technology starts with gaming, but then it moves into business uses and more, other use cases. But the gaming right now is really fascinating of how it works.
So, okay, so that's for gaming. So I'm not sure what percentage of people in the world are gamers. But if you're just an average person who's not into gaming, right? And I'm sure we have a lot of watchers today that are just like, well, I'm not a gamer, so what's the benefit? So if I'm just going on to whatever, CNBC or whatever most people go to, whatever URL they go to, I'm just trying to think of Web 2.0 had privacy issues, right? A lot of blocking. That was one of the big issues with Web 2.0. Web 2 also had issues with being centralized, right? Mm-hmm. So now we're going on the blockchain. Privacy should go up. Decentralization is the theme of Web 3. But if I'm just going on to a website and I don't want to game, I mean, I'm just trying to think of, for the regular person, are they going to know the difference that they're on Web 3? Are they going to see it?
They might not see a difference, but in terms of the privacy of what you're talking about, definitely, because with Web3, the theory is, as time goes on, you'll be able to control your data, because you can connect and disconnect your wallet, and the data is your data. The issue right now is when you use a lot of these free apps like Facebook, you're the product, because Facebook sells your data to advertisers and all these different companies that want that information. And so with the centralized aspect, all of that data is how they make money. But once you transition to Web3, that data is now your data. It's not their data. And that's huge.
Light bulbs are going off all over. Anyone who's watching this video, that is one of the key differentiation pieces, because it's interesting. Some people like to write articles for other websites, right?
Mm.
And I often will get writers who come to me and say, John, I'd like to write an essay for your website. I think it'd be a good idea. That's their data, but the question is now it's coming on my website. Whose data is it, right? So there's definitely gray lines in Web 2 that didn't exist in Web 1, but now so in Web 3, you mean I can keep my information secure and basically tell them they are not allowed to use my information for their benefits and purposes?
Beyond that, even, it's really exciting because you see like how if you say the wrong word or you belong to the wrong political affiliation or whatever it is, they can completely delete whatever you're doing or delete you entirely. And by giving all of this this editorial control to these large companies, they get to determine what's true and false. And while probably a vast majority of the time they're probably correct in it violated the terms of service and there's reasons why someone got canceled or deplatformed. The challenge is that that's great when it's when it's against your team, but what happens when it happens to you? So every good intention starts as a good intention until it comes back to bite you.
So okay, so here I am once again, the average user, and I'm going onto a website, and I'm either publishing content, I'm providing personal data information about my family. I'm thinking of people who use Facebook and a lot of the social media platforms as well, but that's all on the web. So do you think that there will be actual points of their experience on Web 3.0 where they'll be able to click boxes, or will they just be able to have the information and say, nope, you can't use that? I mean, how do you visualize that working?
Well, once it's on the blockchain, it's kind of on the blockchain. And that goes back to my earlier point of the decentralized and name only, is it still ultimately comes down to who's providing the user interface. They can show or not show whatever they want because it's the user interface. But on the blockchain, it's immutable. Once it is on the blockchain, it's there. And the way that, so just to kind of give an example of right now, if you post on Facebook or Twitter, it's free to post on that because the way that those companies make money is by taking that data, the browsing info, a ton of different metrics that they can instantly find out about you, and they sell that information to advertisers. And then you see ads, and presumably everyone's happy, but it's not really the best business model. So imagine on the flip side of that would be in a Web3 world, if you wanted to post something, it might cost 1 cent or 5 cents or just something nominal. But instead of having the data sold to advertisers, you're paying to post it. And you can do that through the web wallet. And in one of our previous videos, we talked about the microtransactions. Right now, it costs at least 30 cents to have a credit card transaction. So that would be nearly impossible if you wanted it to be 1 cent every post. You couldn't do that. And this allows for a very simple way to have these transactions happen.
We could probably go on, and this is going to be a topic that we're going to have a lot of conversations in the future about Web3. It clearly is, decentralized with all the apps, blockchain technology. I can just go on and on about questions I'm going to be asking you about the user experience, because that, when it comes down to it, are people going to have a choice when it comes to Web3? Is it just they're going to log on to their computer, get on the internet, and boom, it's there? They don't even know what's happening, right?
Yeah, there'll be browsers built or wallets built in the browsers. They'll be on your phone. Like it'll eventually just be ubiquitous. And so, in the parting words, I I ask everybody if you have crypto on like an exchange, like Coinbase, or even if you have it, you've moved it to a wallet and you're a little bit more advanced. You've got to start trying out these decentralized apps and decentralized finance, and actually use the crypto, because the way that crypto is set up is most people probably just keep it in Coinbase, or far worse, they have it in Robinhood or something like that. But it starts when you actually start using the crypto to actually, experience what Web3 has. And once you start doing that, a ton of light bulbs are going to go off, and you're really going to love the experience.
Well, I'll save that for the next video, or that experiential piece I think is really critical for the average person. Brad, I want to thank you today for talking about Web3. This is really a fascinating development that we're going to see over the next coming years. And here at Genesis, folks, that's our whole purpose, is to help educate a high percentage of people who just don't understand what's going on, whether it's the nomenclature, the vocabulary, what's happening in the world of cryptocurrency. I know we're throwing a lot of ideas and things for you to help define. And that's what our job is, to help you define what's going on. Brad and I are going to be talking about a lot of different ideas every week. And that's it. So 21 minutes is pretty much our timeline. Every week we want to give you one idea about cryptocurrency. It's going to help you navigate through this thing. And if you like this information, go ahead and hit the subscribe button below. That'll help us understand what ideas you like. Brad, any final thoughts you want to talk about Web3 before we leave?
Yeah, I just really think that Web3 is going to become ubiquitous, and the sooner you hop on the train, you can get ahead. And there's a lot of ways to make money from this too. It's not just using it; you can actually make money from it. So over time, definitely check out our website. We have a ton of information on how to make money using this new technology.
We're going to be talking about how to make money, how to understand how to use Web3, how to get ahead of the curve. We'll be talking that in the weeks to come. So thanks very much for your time, Brad. We'll see you next week.
Yeah,
here
thanks.
at YouTube.
Thanks, John. Yeah, it was great to talk to you. Have a good one.
See you next week.
Bye.